Kevin, introduce yourself about in the Anclote system.
And my name is Kevin McLoone, owner and vice president of Anclote Manufacturing Company, located here. User-controlled elevated vacuum pump and our new suction plates.
Kind of talk about what's going on here, so the patient goes in.
So I've got a similar socket to you, Sam. So what's nice is it's all user-controlled. It's a very simple mechanical system, so that the user simply presses it a few times.
So this is pumping, and they can pump out. When they do this, it's not sealing it, it's just moving the plunger piece out of the way.
That's correct. We've got a testing apparatus here. Essentially, as the user pumps it, they're pulling vacuum. Now, this testing apparatus has a lot of volume, so it takes a few more pumps than usual. So what's nice is once the user gets accustomed to activating the pump, based on their activity levels, they can dictate how much vacuum they're going to use. 2 patients recently, this guy's an extremely short AK, and he was wearing a competing elevated vacuum system. He said, one of the best things about this is I'm so short, when I sit and have lunch or dinner, I tend to break suction. So all the other systems, it would take me so many steps to regain my confidence to have vacuum. He's like, so I can get up, pump this a few times, and I feel very confident walking. Another guy, he was in a motorcycle accident. He's actually a Tampa firefighter. Once he tried this, he just liked how much more vacuum it pulled. Got the Farrier coupler, so he detaches 1 foot, so 1 foot stays in his firefighter boot. He can switch and not lose vacuum from a tube being connected to the socket or anything. So he'll go from 1 foot to the next in his firefighter gear within so many seconds.
So talk to us about how much vacuum or how little vacuum do you generate with just a few pumps?
For this pump is 18 inches. It's going to be based on how much air is in the socket. We'll find a lot of times, if it's a really very good fitting socket, we've seen it go to 18 in just a couple of pumps. Some guys, they're going on an airplane, they might pump it once. And if they're going golfing, they might pump it 4 or 5 times. It gives the user control. It's just a simple mechanical system.
The gentleman liked it. He's like, oh, I really like that. He said, the only thing is I can't tell how much vacuum's in there. I'm like, yeah, there's no needle, there's no gauge, there's no app readout, and it's that simple.
It is that simple. We do intend to add a gauge one day down the road, but we didn't want to complicate the system. And we will most likely add a release button as well one day. Right now, the vacuum's released by cracking the suspension sleeve, or if you're using a seal-in style liner, you might have to add an additional release valve to the socket. I'll point out the seal on this whole system is right here.
Right there, it's like an O-ring right there, right?
Is the most critical part on the fabrication of this device. You're getting that seal from the tooling there, so you have to make sure it's clean. It's really simple. What we find is technicians, once they get accustomed to fabricating these, they can fabricate a lot more of these vacuum style sockets than they can traditional vacuum style sockets. So once you set the tooling on the positive model, pull either your check socket or a thin layer of PET-G. And the most critical spot is just making sure you don't get a hammock beneath that set screw, right? What'll often cause the one leak. So once you figure that piece out, it's bulletproof. One of the other things we recommend to do is you can stick a liner over the top of the socket, not a sleeve where you twist it off. Just take a liner, and then that way the technician can test for bench test just to make sure they've got good vacuum.
That's cool.
The other component is the silicone distillate pad. We produce these, and it's got a hole right through the center. That's where all the air gets pulled through, which is kind of nice because that allows the practitioner to load more weight distally without being nervous about if you don't have enough contact distally. As you know, with elevated vacuum, you can tend to draw blood to the bottom of the limb, and it causes discomfort. It makes it a little bit more forgiving to load more weight distally and make sure you've got that distal contact.
You could probably bill for a distal pad.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I forget what the code is. I think it's 5665 or something like that. And it's only $150, so it's not a lot of money, but it definitely helps compensate for some of the time spent fabricating everything.
Cool. And then you have one other component to show us, right?
As we launched our elevated vacuum pump, we continue to get really good feedback from the field on how well it seals. And a lot of times when you fit a socket, you're chasing a leak, especially with elevated vacuum, because you're threading a barb and doing all this stuff. Instead of having the pump, we've got a suction plate with a distal end pad, 2 different size, medium or large. The same size plate, they just taper out differently. What's nice about this is stick the tooling on the positive model, pull your check socket, and you're walking a patient within minutes. So you're not gunking a plate on. You don't have the safety factor of that plate potentially breaking off of the check socket for that initial walking.
Question, because your connection on that and on the pump structurally part of the socket. What's your maximum weight rating on it?
275 pounds.
Well, that's cool.